Time to talk about Chelsea with James Olley and with Shaka Hislop. James, I want to start with you. There's a lot of imponderables that may or may not happen between now and the summer. I want to take you forward a little bit more. What differences do you think we will see between the Chelsea of right now and the Chelsea that kick off the Premier League campaign in August?
Well, we think we know the manager is going to stay. That's first and foremost a constant during the next few months. Thomas Tuchel publicly and privately has stated his intention to stay and see it through at Chelsea, no matter the uncertainty above him. The same can't be said for a lot of the players. I think we may see a very, very different team starting the first game of next season. Assuming, by the way, as an aside to all of this, that the ownership goes through before May the 31st and they get their licence for the start of next season and Chelsea can continue to exist as a football club, which is not, it should happen, but it's not 100% certain as we stand here now. But really, the longer that ownership issue goes on and the more they're incapable of speaking to transfer targets and trying to tie down players on new contracts, the more uncertain that picture is going to be and that team is going to look at the start of next season. And if you go through it, there's been a lot of focus on Rudiger and Christensen and Azpilicueta, those three who were out of contract. They triggered the extra year for Azpilicueta, so we think he's more likely to stay than not, although Barcelona are still trying to prize him away. But there are issues all over the pitch, really. If you look at that team, we've obviously got Romelu Lukaku and the situation there. You've got N'Golo Kante and Jorginho who've got a year left on their current deals, and Chelsea would in a normal world be looking to tie those two down to further contracts. And even players like Mason Mount have got a little bit longer to go. They would be talking to these players now about contract extensions. And Thomas Tuchel's already on the record saying that they'd like to be out trying to talk to targets, talk to agents about new signings for the summer. And they're incapable of doing that at the moment because of the terms of the licence that they've been given to operate. So that they are losing ground all the time. So I think it's going to look very, very different come August.
Shaka, if you are Mendy or Kepa, a goalkeeper at Chelsea right now, you've still got a bit of time left on your deal. Mm-hmm. What are you thinking? Are you thinking of looking elsewhere? Are you thinking of staying? What are you doing right now?
I'm not looking elsewhere at all. I think there's a lot to be decided in the next few months. And right now, we can only speculate as to what Chelsea will look like come August. The fact of the matter is for both, especially with Mendy, who got his opportunity at the highest level at Chelsea, has had huge success with Chelsea Football Club. I don't think that's coming into your mind right now. You recognize that there's a lot that's about to happen, and you have to wait to see how that shapes up. Who leaves, who comes in, what the ownership looks like, what their plans are. So, and truth be told, as far as the players are concerned, you recognize that there are a few going out to contract and who move on, but that's no different from any other season. The circumstance around it is different, but the fact that players are coming in, or in this case, only going, is no real difference. And you just see what comes of it, and you take that, you deal with that at the time. While I understand, as James is pointing out, that Chelsea may very well cease to exist as a football club if deadlines are met. I think that's the legal truth, but I don't think in a month of Sundays we'll see Chelsea not be a Premier League club come August.
We always seem to find a way. Whichever club, don't we, Shaq? No matter where it is, administration or whatever, it's very rare that something like that would happen, especially with a club the size of Chelsea.
Yeah, and also, I mean, DCMS, the government department, have been appointed to oversee the sale. They've been very clear all the way through this that, they wanted to do the best by Chelsea because of the cultural importance that they have as the cultural importance to the country, if you like, as one of the biggest sort of community draws in London. And I would be surprised if May the 31st passed and there was a hard stop and they said, well, that's it. You've gone to the wall, you're bankrupt, you no longer exist as a club. You would expect them to try and find a way. But this can't go on indefinitely. Mm-hmm. And there is an issue here with, with how the club moves forward. And I understand what Shaq's saying about, contracts end and players come and go and things. But this is a real turning point for Chelsea, because a lot of the players will not really know the kind of club that they're signing up for.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know what Chelsea is going to look like in the post-Roman Abramovich era. I'm sure that if the Todd Boehly deal gets over the line, they will want to make a splash. We know that they have a track record in terms of running sports clubs, but you are going from, and we can talk about the source of his wealth, and that's a separate conversation, but just purely in football terms, somebody who invested almost limitless funds in a club was happy until the last few days to write that debt off and really ran it as, we want to win here and now. You are signing for a team that does not wait. There's very rarely this talk about transition at Chelsea. They very rarely talk about 2, 3, 4 year projects. They sign players and they hire and fire managers based on, we are going to win now, and that is our goal. And that is the Chelsea we know in the sort of modern day Premier League era. We just don't know if that's going to continue. We don't know if that culture will survive the change of ownership, or whether the new owners will even want to run it that way.
Here's the same question for you both. I'll start with you, Shaka. Right now, let's hypothetically just say there are 2 tiers. Of course, there are more in the Premier League, but hypothetically, we'll say there's 2 tiers. Tier 1, Man City and Liverpool. Tier 2, Chelsea are probably at the top of Tier 2, which includes the rest of the Premier League teams. Is that still going to be the case, in your opinion, Shaq? And then James, next season, will Chelsea be best of the rest, or do you think Chelsea will just be also-rans?
I think Chelsea will be in Tier 2. Whether they're best of the rest, who knows? Manchester United as a football club certainly have failed in their own expectation. But just given who they are, given how that club is structured, how solid commercially they are, I think many, including all Manchester United fans, just want to put this season down as a blip. So United will have a lot of say in how those also runs after City and Liverpool may look. And I mean that in the greatest of respect to Manchester United. They just aren't in the same space. And while to James's point, there may be a cultural shift around Chelsea and what you can expect. And this is just me looking from the outside. I don't think that's as scary a prospect as maybe Chelsea fans are thinking right now. And you spoke about Tier 1 football clubs in the Premier League. Liverpool with the Fenway Sports Group, and when they took over, there was all this speculation that they weren't going to match the spending of Abramovich and of City, and they don't have the kind of commercial foundations that Manchester United have. How are they going to compete? But they did their business intelligently. They found a manager who suits who they are as a football club. They spent in a way that doesn't really have the club hanging on financial risk. And here we are talking about Liverpool right now being one of the best clubs in European football. Now, that may be the blueprint, as opposed to wealthy owners who own oil fields coming in and splashing obscene amounts of money. So while it may signal a shift, I don't think it right now. I'm not as concerned as maybe some Chelsea fans are.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Shaq in the sense of Tier 2. I don't think that if they can maintain third, if they can be sort of, let's assume they finish the season in third place, if they can go into next season with what I think will still have to be a fairly, well, I wouldn't say big rebuild, but there's going to be a lot of key decisions need to be made. But we are talking about a team that won the Champions League last season, and the core of that group is still there. Yes, they're losing Rudiger. They're probably going to lose Christensen. They may lose 1 or 2 others. They may choose to sell Lukaku, Kepa. I mean, if you think about those two, for example, and the transfer fees that they paid just for those 2 players alone, Kepa and Lukaku, if they can get anything like the money that they paid out coming back in, you're not really weakening the starting 11, but you could really improve the squad there. You know, Kepa's obviously played very rarely for Chelsea. I think he started 1 or 2 games since the Club World Cup. Lukaku can't get in the team for love nor money at the moment. And I think if there was a scenario where they could find a similar amount of money, or club to pay a similar amount of money, they'd move him on. And already you're looking at 120, 130 million, maybe in that best case scenario, that kind of figure to reinvest in the squad. So I think they should be looking up. I think that they should be trying to aim to look at Liverpool and Man City rather than fearing looking over their shoulders. But Tottenham are going to come again. We keep thinking that Antonio Conte is going to get the backing from Daniel Levy to go and spend, assuming that they can keep Harry Kane. That is a team that will be looking for fourth at minimum next season. We don't really know about Arsenal's finances, but what they've done with that small group, they're going to have European football to contend with, which will be a difficult factor for them. But there does seem to be a sense of momentum about what Arsenal are doing at the moment. And Manchester United are starting again, and they're going to get funds. So it's going to be as competitive as it ever has been. But I'd still say, with even all of the uncertainty that Chelsea are going through at the moment, assuming that gets sorted this month, they still should be in a position where they're thinking third is the minimum of our aspirations.
Finally, how big an achievement would that be, Shaka? And then James, if they can continue as they are right now, as a side that could potentially challenge for a title, but certainly will challenge and contend for cup competitions, if they can maintain the status quo despite all this potential upheaval, Shaka, would that be a success for Chelsea?
Absolutely, it would be. Listen, we've not seen anything quite like this in English football, certainly. So right now, as far as what's to come, we're flying a little bit blind. So you have to speculate as to what that may look like. The truth is, I still think that City and Liverpool are so far ahead of everybody else. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So right now we are talking about the also-rans. And if Chelsea can continue to compete at the highest of that level, I think without question that is a huge success and gives them a foundation to build on and then set their sights on the two clubs above them. But this uncertainty hasn't helped. I think it's shown itself slightly. I think as the dust settles over the summer months and you put this season behind you and you start looking forward to next season, and the optimism that always kills you. The optimism starts to take shape and take hold. I don't think we'll see Chelsea other than in too far removed from how they are today.
James, we'll give you the final word with your optimism and your optimistic take for the future of Chelsea.
Well, Chelsea are a club that defy expectations time and again. They always have done. They've broken the mold, really, when we thought habitually that stability was the key to success, that longevity of managers was the key to building dynasties, to building a club that could be successful over a long period of time. And yet no English club won more trophies than the Roman Abramovich 19-year era. And they have time and again proven that they can ride out any storm, and there is a core in that club that knows how to get the job done, that wins trophies, that turns up in the big games. They don't always succeed, but when they fall, they bounce back stronger. You think about the times that they finished. I think they finished 10th one season in the Premier League and they won it the following year. You know, these are the sort of things that they can do. They can bounce back in a way that we've rarely seen from other clubs. You think about their 2 Champions League wins. Objectively, they were not the best team in Europe on paper in either of those years, and yet they found a way to do it, and they won the ultimate prize. And really, that is the essence of what these bidders have been bidding for. They want to buy a successful club. They want to buy a club that in its DNA knows how to get the job done. And they've always shown it in the past, so let's just assume that they can show it in the future. But they're going to need to get things right off the field so that on-field stability in instability, if you like, can continue.
To that point, James making, and it's very valid given Chelsea's success. Now, and I'm thinking of this more from a wider business perspective than just footballing. But oftentimes when you have clubs who have these dynasties, as James phrased it, it's normally built around one big, strong personality. If we're talking Manchester United, it was around Sir Alex Ferguson. Right now, City and Liverpool are around their respective managers. Chelsea was around Abramovich. And just from a football club perspective, how do you cope when that big personality leaves? We saw what's happened with Manchester United since the departure of Sir Alex Ferguson. Is this departure of Roman Abramovich kind of a precursor or litmus test as to what maybe City and Liverpool have to do when Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp respectively decide they have to move on for whatever reason that may be? All good things come to an end. How do you shape your succession in a way that doesn't affect the club too severely? No, Chelsea were dropped in this, of course, as much as, again, all good things come to an end. Nobody foresaw the Roman Abramovich era coming to an end as abruptly or in the manner that it has. Nobody could predict the kind of global situation that sparked that. So it'll be a really interesting review for, I'm going to say Harvard, given that Sir Alex Ferguson himself was a guest professor at Harvard University. So I'm putting it on their plate as well.
Yeah, nothing to do with the fact it's just up the road from where you live as well. Shaka, James, thank you. This is difficult to predict what happens with Chelsea Football Club. Quite simply, time will tell.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.